Elizabeth Audencream.
This one's wife. Legitimate targets? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Prince Harry and this one's wife have been angling after taxpayer-funded security for some time, and for access to intelligence reports. The current situation is that if Harry visits the United Kingdom, then he must give 30 days' notice, and he will be provided with security paid for by the taxpayer. But he wants a higher level than that. He and this one's wife want the ability to essentially turn up with less notice, be afforded a bespoke solution to their security needs paid for by the taxpayer, but also for the purposes of being able to access intelligence reports. There are those that form the view that since he decided to no longer be a working member of the royal family and moved to the United States, that he should have to take care of his own security arrangements and pay for them, which is what he's currently doing. There are others that form the view that he could not help but be born a prince, and he remains a prince for life, and therefore he should be afforded taxpayer-funded security when he visits other countries, and that he should be afforded the status of an internationally protected person. There are others who think that he's brought much of this trouble on himself, that his comments in Spare about the number of Taliban that he had killed, or purportedly had killed, not only was not the way that a soldier would ordinarily speak about their service, but it also put a target on his back, or perhaps increased the size of that target. And therefore, he is, in whole or in part, responsible for his own woes. He's made his own bed and he's going to have to lie in it. There are others that believe that the desire of this one's wife and Harry to secure international protected person status is not only as a consequence of no longer having to pay for their own security when they go to different places, so that it is exhibiting a sense of entitlement and saving money, clearly money being a concern to both of them, but also because they want to be able to access information. They want to be able to access information not only with regard to apparent security threats against them vis-a-vis, say, a kidnap plot, but because they want information about people generally, so that they're able to shut them down. It is suspected that the Sussexes, as part of their need to silence dissenting voices, the drivers for which are different for Harry and for this one's wife, is part of their desire to have access to this information so that they can know what is being said about them and they can take appropriate action. There's been a further development which seems to bolster Harry's case. The question then arises, is this legitimate, or is this more PR spin being utilised by the Sussexes in order to get what they want? Harry exhibiting his narcissistic trait of selfishness, and this one's wife naturally driven by her own narcissistic paranoia and her desire for this residual benefit, both in terms of other people paying for things, something we have seen a pattern in relation to, her use of private jets, her use of clothing, etc., but also the ability to access information so that she can nullify the threat to control posed by her critics. Matthew Acton, writing for Radar Online, explains that Prince Harry has been mocked for declaring about the chances of him and his family returning to Britain without increased security. He said, "I couldn't see a world in which we'd feel safe coming back." But apparently, according to this outlet, his fears are justified, with the threat level against the royal and his family now higher than ever. A security insider stated, Harry, his wife, and their kids have their names all over the dark web. and encrypted channels used by terrorists to communicate. They are a high-value kidnap and torture commodity for jihadists to use against Britain and the West, and there are also complete obsessives who are talking constantly about stalking the pair and their children. Now, pausing there. Naturally, none of this evidence has actually been provided to show who these individuals are, or even, if the names were redacted, to provide evidence showing the chit-chat in the dark web and encrypted channels to demonstrate that these things are being said. Skeptics might suggest that actually this is just being generated by Harry and this one's wife to elicit sympathy and to try and gain leverage by saying, the security threat against us is higher than ever, give us what we want. Alternatively, it may well just be chit-chat and nothing will come of it, but of course one would have to take such threats seriously, given the status of Harry. The alternative is these threats are indeed credible and that they remain potential targets as a consequence of the leverage that could be obtained by kidnapping Prince Harry or a member of his family. Apparently, the threat level against them is now on red. Harry remains locked in a bitter legal battle with the British government over the removal of state-funded police protection, and sources say that Harry and his wife have genuine and specific fears about their family's safety if they were to return to Britain. With radical protesters and terrorist groups identified as ongoing risks, experts warn the couple are legitimate targets and stress the threat is far from theoretical. Royal commentator Duncan Larkham backs up the source's information. He said, the threat is very real. There are people out there, lunatics, radical individuals and terrorist elements who would see attacking Harry or this one's wife as a symbolic act. That's the reality they're dealing with. These are not paranoid fears. These are credible risks. Harry has remained in California. He was absent, of course, from Trooping the Colour, and insiders say it wasn't just strained family ties that kept him away, but the ongoing security standoff. A source close to the couple said, Harry can't risk bringing this one's wife and the children over without proper protection. It's not a matter of ego, it's about safety. These threats aren't vague, they're specific, and they're terrifying. Harry lost his High Court appeal in May against the decision to strip him of police protection when visiting the United Kingdom. The ruling confirmed he would no longer be entitled to armed security provided by the Metropolitan Police, despite his status as a senior royal by birth. It's worth pointing out, of course, that this article fails to mention that if he gives 30 days notification, he will still receive taxpayer-funded security. It's not like he's going to be left to wander the streets alone, ringing doorbells, without any proper security. Oh, wait a second. Anyway, according to Larkham, this decision leaves the couple dangerously exposed. Private security simply doesn't compare, he said. They can hire former military or security professionals, but they don't have access to British intelligence, counter-terrorism briefings, or police networks. That gap could mean the difference between life and death. At big royal events, you see uniformed officers, but behind the scenes, MI5 and counter-terror teams are involved. That infrastructure just isn't available to Harry anymore. He's essentially flying blind. Once again, Diana gets brought up. Sources close to the exiled Duke say deep trauma still informs his views on the importance of state-level protection as a consequence of the death of his mother. This one's wife is said to be deeply concerned. She's terrified, one insider said. She wants her children to be safe. Coming back to the United Kingdom without full protection is not something she's willing to consider. Unless something changes, she and Harry won't be coming back to Britain as a group. The threats are too serious, and Harry knows it. Now, we know that the overriding reason why this one's wife won't come back to the United Kingdom is because her narcissism perceives that she will be given a hostile reception. This is a threat to control. Her narcissism is a self-defense mechanism, and because it perceives that the royal family are against her, the British public are against her, and the British media are against her, that there is no point in her attending. That is accurate. It could also be the case that it's driven by concerns in relation to security as well, because those security concerns would also be a threat to control. So potentially there's 4 reasons which are preventing her coming to the United Kingdom. An alternative explanation is that it is the media, the British public, and the royal family that pose the problem, and she uses the issue of security as the excuse to not come, because she doesn't want to label the other items because her facade management sees that as problematic. It is conceivable, of course, that Harry and this one's wife would be the subject of threats given their prominence and also some of their behaviour. That's not to say that it's justified, but it does mean that they have that increased prominence, and as a consequence of that, they remain potential targets. But is this all part of an attempt by Harry and this one's wife to weave a narrative? Radar Online are normally quite critical of the Sussexes, but at the end of the day they're in the business of reporting and getting clicks, and therefore might it be that they have joined a particular bandwagon to assist the Sussexes in stating their security case? Might this be yet more manipulation that is coming from this one's wife and Harry? Might it be part of their ongoing desire to have access to information that is the main thrust of their concerns, along with some degree of concern in relation to security? The fact that this article has appeared and has emphasised the level of threat, albeit without providing any actual evidence, means it's open to interpretation. It wouldn't be a surprise to learn, of course, that this one's wife, along with Harry, would seek to manipulate the narrative, as they have done in the past, in order to gain a benefit and engender public sympathy. And then again, it is also not beyond the realms of possibility that it is true that they are facing these threats, and they want people to know that that's the case. The difficulty that they have is, as a consequence of their previous behaviour, people are less sympathetic to them because they see them as a pair of self-absorbed whingers. And, once again, the law of collateral consequences applies with regard to the narcissism of this one's wife. Valuable viewers, what are your thoughts? Do you believe that these are actually credible threats and therefore the security ought to be provided? Do you think that it is a mixture of them wanting to access information and gaining security because they don't have to pay for it, whilst there are some credible threats also? Or do you think this is a cynical exercise whereby they are overstating the risk for the purposes of trying to manipulate the narrative? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.